From 1978 to 1985, Kenner Toy Company sold 300 million Star Wars action figures. Stacked head to toe, that's enough to circle the globe 4 times. I did the math. This is their story.
A lot of carbon scoring here. Looks like you boys have seen a lot of action.
George Lucas was a young filmmaker coming off his first success, American Graffiti, in 1973. His next project was even more ambitious, a space fantasy based on the adventure serials of his youth and influenced by the films of legendary Japanese filmmaker Akira Kurosawa. He was rejected by every studio in Hollywood, until 20th Century Fox reluctantly agreed. But Lucas ended up sinking $500,000 of his own dollars into pre-production and accepted far less money up front than he could have demanded in order to maintain creative control and the rights to merchandising. It was a good bet. Lucas made so much money off the licensing of merchandise that he was able to finance Empire and Jedi off of the profits. And the biggest chunk of that came from the toys. Lucas famously offered the Mego Corporation the opportunity to produce Star Wars toys. They were riding high off the success of their world's greatest superheroes line. They passed, as did every other major toy company. Finally, tiny Kenner Toys in Cincinnati, Ohio took the bait. Most famous for their Easy Bake Ovens, they had virtually zero experience in boys' action figures. Compounding the problem, they had signed the deal just 1 month before the film's release in May of 1977. They had to figure things out, and fast. Action figures were typically 8 or 11 inches at the time, but Kenner knew vehicles and playsets were going to be vital to the line's success. Legend has it that during a design meeting, one Kenner designer, frustrated with the process, said, "Just make Luke Skywalker this big," holding his fingers slightly apart. A fellow designer quickly grabbed a ruler and measured the distance at 3 3/4 inches, thus setting the scale for the entire line. Getting the product to market, however, wouldn't prove so easy. With their late start, there was no way Kenner could get the toys on shelves for Christmas of 1977. So they made a bold move to sell an empty box. The early bird package wasn't completely empty. It had some stickers, a diorama, a Star Wars membership card, and a certificate to be one of the very first kids to own action figures of Luke, Leia, Chewie, and R2. They were quickly joined by 8 additional figures, and the original 12 Star Wars action figures were ready to go in early 1978. These original 12 figures included R2-D2, Chewbacca, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader, Han Solo, C-3PO, Stormtrooper, Death Squad Commander, Jawa, and a Tusken Raider. R2 had a sticker around its entire body, and a vac metal dome that clicked as you turned his head. Chewie came with his bowcaster, and was one of the tallest figures in the line. Luke Skywalker came in both blonde and brown-haired variants, and the very earliest figures had a double telescoping lightsaber. Here are examples of blonde Luke, brown-haired Luke, and in the foreground, a double telescoping Luke. With the double telescoping version, the thicker part of the lightsaber slid out from the wrist, and then an additional lengthy tip extended from there. Due to the cost of manufacturing the separate parts, this was quickly discontinued, and the fragility of that final tip makes finding a mint version almost impossible. Leia had her vinyl cape, and the tiny little laser pistol that almost all of us lost instantaneously. The earliest versions of Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi also came with a double telescoping blue lightsaber. As did the nightmarish Darth Vader. I always loved how this figure towered over my Luke Skywalker. You gotta realize, for those of us who watched Star Wars as kids, we knew nothing about Darth Vader. No backstory, no redemption, just this evil character. Costume designer John Molo fused the shiny black headgear of the Nazis with a gas mask, motorcycle suit, and a monk's cloak he found in the Middle Ages department of a costume warehouse to give us one of the most enduring versions of evil in the history of film. Han Solo was produced with both a small and a larger scale head. This is the bigger one, which has a more accurate likeness. Solo was like a cowboy from an old western. He even dressed like one. but he also gave us the rational voice we could relate to in a movie filled with wizards with laser sticks. And here's old Goldenrod, everybody's favorite protocol droid, C-3PO. The really lucky kids in my neighborhood had multiple Stormtrooper figures. And here is our first not Grand Moff Tarkin, the Death Squad Commander. The Jawa was first released with a vinyl cape, but Kenner was concerned that parents would be upset paying full price for a figure that was half the size, so they re-released it with a more luxurious cloth cape. He's in there somewhere. And finally, the Sand Person. His arms are sculpted so that he can hold his bantha stick over his head, just like in the movie. After the roaring success of the initial launch, 8 more figures were released, the first 4 of which were available in a Cantina playset exclusive to Sears. Greedo, shot last, nuff said. Hammerhead, king of the alien side-eye. Walrus Man, 'cause, he looks like a walrus. And Snaggletooth. Apparently things were happening so fast, the Kenner designers only had one grainy black and white photo to go on while designing this figure. So they did their best. They gave him silver space boots and normal proportions. As soon as the movie came out, that version was scrapped for a more screen-accurate likeness, making the blue one of the more difficult to find figures in the entire line. Luke became the first character to get a second figure in the line with his X-Wing pilot suit. I was a full-grown adult before I realized that that is his visor and not his hair peeking down over his forehead. The power droid, or gonk droid, was really just good for one thing. Ha! Still works! Kenner could have cheaped out here like every other toy company and reused parts from C-3PO to make the Death Star droid. But they didn't. It's a whole new sculpt. Last and most assuredly least, R5-D4. How many kids you think opened up their birthday present from Aunt Joni and found this worthless hunk of plastic? And that is not at all based on a true story. There was one final figure that appeared on an original Star Wars movie card back. But for that story, you're going to have to wait for part 2 of the history of the complete Star Wars vintage collection. Hey, if you like this video, tell us about it. Hit like and subscribe so you'll be ready for part 2 of this series. And while you're waiting, check out some of our other videos. We're trying to do more than just show you our collection. We want you to learn a little, and maybe laugh a little too. So until next time, we'll see you at Carbon Scoring.